Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Are you making the best breeding decisions to optimize the productivity of your cow herd? Experts representing some of the leading breed associations will share their advice on how to improve your cow herd by focusing on maternal-driven genetics and traits.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Ochsner. Thanks for joining us. One of the most important decisions a cattle producer makes is the genetic makeup of their cow herd, and that choice can impact your profitability for years to come. While most genetic change is focused on making the right bull selection, we also need exceptional cows to optimize efficiency and profitability. So what steps can you take in selecting genetics that will improve your herd? I'm here with an experienced group of people representing a handful of different breeds and breed associations who are ready to share some practical advice on how you can improve your herd with quality genetics. Tom Strom represents the American Gelbvieh Association. Tom, tell us a little bit about yourself and the Gelbvieh breed.
Well, good morning, and thank you for the invitation. We appreciate the opportunity to be involved in this discussion today. I'm the Commercial Marketing Director for the Gelbvieh Association. I live at Sabetha, Kansas. The AGA is headquartered in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we celebrated 50 years in the United States last summer. Gelbvieh cattle were originally developed in Germany. They were a multi-purpose breed used for meat, milk, and draft. And then about 20 years ago, the AGA developed balancer cattle, which is a trademark for registered hybrid cattle, a minimum of 25% Gelbvieh up to 75% Gelbvieh, with the offsetting percentage being either red Angus or black Angus. And so they've really contributed a lot to the progress of the genetics in our herd book and our cattle population. Gelbvieh and balancer females offer maternal superiority, and then these balancer feeder cattle offer an excellent combination of growth and carcass merit.
Thank you, Tom. And speaking of Red Angus cattle, we have Ryan Bolt representing the Red Angus Association of America. Ryan, introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about background of your breed.
Yes, Kevin. My name is Ryan Bolt, and I am the Director of Breed Improvement for the Red Angus Association. So work a lot with genetic evaluations and improving genetics and maternal genetics, especially in Red Angus. And so Red Angus was a breed association started in the 1950s. It's been a breed that's really been focused on performance recording and genetic improvement. And we were actually the first breed association to implement a mandatory total herd reporting system in the mid-1990s. And so what that really allows us to do is to better understand maternal performance on every female in our herd book. And so we really put a lot of focus and a lot of emphasis on those maternal traits. And that's allowed us to have the industry's most favored female, according to the superior data.
Thank you, Ryan. And alongside Ryan is Dr. Kelly Retallick of the American Angus Association. Kelly, introduce yourself.
Well, good morning. I'm Kelly Retallick. I'm part of the Angus Genetics Group. I'm actually the president of that entity, which is a subsidiary of the American Angus Association. So I actually grew up through and through in the Angus breed. I actually grew up showing, my dad's replacement heifers in front of Mr. Shane Bedwell and Mr. Jimmy Williams over here. I always did a lot better under Shane than Jimmy, though. So really excited to be on this panel with these fine folks. And I'm here representing the Angus breed. And we've always been kind of the maternal option of choice for the American beef industry. And then when the big C drive, the continental drive, came into the Americas and in the United States, we really started promoting those growth characteristics of Angus cattle. And really, when I look around here, we're kind of the crossbreeding bull of choice, right? We've helped create the balancers for the Gelbviehs, the black Baldies for the Herefords, and then the Brangus for the Brahmins. And so really been able to really use that Angus bull in a really unique way. And part of that is just its strong maternal characteristics.
Fantastic. And next in line is Shane Bedwell representing the American Hereford Association. Shane, give us a little background of the legacy of the Hereford breed.
Thank you, Kevin. It's an honor to be here. I serve as the Chief Operating Officer and Director of Breed Improvement for the American Hereford Association. Hereford Association began in 1881 in the Kansas City area, and we're still there. We're a long-standing breed, one of the oldest beef breeds in the United States. Originated, the cattle did in Herefordshire, England, so not a big leap there. The breed's known for its docility, the longevity, the hardiness, the efficiency. And so it's a real pleasure to work for such a strong association, has some deep roots in our beef industry.
Thank you, Shane. And our final panelist is Jim Williams from the V8 Ranch, a registered Brahman cattle operation located in the Texas Gulf Coast. Jim, give us a little background of the Brahman breed and your operation.
Well, I am Jim Williams. I live about 50 miles southwest of here, so I was able to drive in, and we're having this good rain this morning. The American Brahman Breeders Association is located in Bryan, Texas. Historically, we had been here in Houston, Texas for years, and we've moved up there to be next to College Station, Texas A&M, and use their knowledge and expertise to help us. We have a registered Brahman herd at V8 Ranch, a cow-calf operation. It's unique. The people that are here on the panel with me, this is a special group. I've used all of their bulls or their cows in our crossbreeding program. And where we're unique with the Brahman breed, we have an excellent CEO, Dr. Joe Mask. He's young, energetic, grew up here around Brahman country. But we say we're crossbreeding's common denominator, because here in the Gulf Coast and in the southern part of the United States, you almost have to have that Brahman blood in it to strive. And we use that breed as a base to cross with these breeds that are here with us. Our breed has been in 1924 is when we started. And we're unique in some areas because we also have a large membership. We have about 2,200 members, and we have them from South America all the way up and into Thailand. We have an excellent international market, our association, lots of interest, and have a diversified membership because they're all throughout the world where Brahman cattle needed to be used. Glad to be here.
Yes, thank you very much. This will be an exciting panel, and obviously we're focused on the cow, and so I'm going to open with the first question is very simply, do we put enough emphasis on the traits and the genetic makeup of that cow herd? Dr. Retallick, do you want to begin?
Yeah, of course. So I think as we look through genetic selection, we're always talking about the male, right? We're always talking about that bull because he harnesses 50% of our genetics in every single calf, and that's one of those things that we got to continue to make sure we keep in check, right? We need a good bull to come on those cows and be efficient and breed those cows. But when we talk about that maternal cow herd, when we talk about those maternal genetics, we really got to make sure that we're really progressing the entire herd, right, in the right direction. I like to think about it as moving the whole bell curve, right? If we can shift the whole population to the right and we can cut off the bottom third of that maternal cow herd, right? The ones that just aren't cutting it for us in our herd and moving us in the right direction, moving us above breed average. That's really kind of simply of what we're trying to do. And I think it all starts, and I think Ryan and everyone else would agree on the panel, it all starts with a good breeding objective. I think that's one of the simplest things that we can do when we're starting to describe maternal genetics, or really any genetics, is, hey, what are we going to market these calves are we keeping our own replacement females? And if we are, let's make sure we look at things like maternal calving ease. We look at things like maternal weaning weight, and in our other management traits like docility and heifer pregnancy and fertility indexes, in order to allow us to really strengthen that cow herd and move the whole bell curve to the right.
And Ryan, your organization has been capturing data for a long time. What would you add to that?
Yeah, I think Kelly makes a lot of good points there, and really the breeding objective is the start. And after you establish that, you know, many associations have different economic selection indexes, and we have one at Red Angus that we call Herd Builder, and those are traits that happen from conception to weaning, and so that becomes an excellent tool to really try to focus in on those maternal traits and identify animals that can improve you in that direction.
So Tom, I'd ask you, Kelly mentioned the comment about, you know, cutting off that bottom third. Is it enough to simply focus on culling the poor performers out of your cow herd in order to improve your cow herd?
Well, I think that's an excellent place to start, Kevin. But I also think that if a producer can do some preventive work or forward thinking as far as when they're selecting their bulls, as far as using the maternal calving ease, stayability, EPD. The American Gelbvieh Association offers an index called Dollar Cow, which basically tries to identify bulls that can sire daughters with more or greater productivity and more profit potential throughout their lifetime. And then the other thing is, I think, using DNA testing to identify animals that have greater longevity, greater fertility, things like that. And so if you can eliminate animals that you've identified who don't have the potential before you've invested the time and the money to develop them and breed them and calve them, you can save yourself a lot of money.
Shane, what would you add?
I think there's a lot of opportunity, in that keep coal decision to move your herd forward. Eliminating that bottom third, or being sometimes a little more aggressive if you happen to get into that bull that maybe you didn't select enough maternal qualities with, and eliminating those females from the herd. And so, the best way, a lot of times those females are going to find their way out if they don't really fit your production environment. And so I think that's the biggest thing from a maternal standpoint, is that we've tried to make our cattle fit to our environment with extra feed, and maybe not letting those females really work themselves out and adapt. And I think we've become, in some cases, maybe a little bit too terminal focused, and really worked on the output of things a little bit too much. And so letting those females kind of earn it and work in your herd, I think, is a good way to approach it.
And you know a little something about having females that adapt environments, Jim, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. But I want to go back to your first question, too, a minute after I've thought about it. And it's kind of along the same lines that Shane is talking about. You can have the best herd bull battery in the world, whether it's purebred or commercial. But if you don't have that strong maternal base, you can spend millions of dollars on bulls. But if you don't have that good cow herd, a good base that's functional cows, have longevity and durability that maintain themselves, can get and breed under harsh conditions or different environments for different areas of the country, you've got to have that strong maternal base. And if you just don't have that, you're in an uphill battle, I'll tell you that.
I want to ask the next question to each one of you, because I want to get the perspective of where we agree and maybe have some differences of opinion. But as we think about building that maternal cow base, what are some of the traits that I should be looking for in making those selection and breeding decisions? Tom?
Well, I think definitely looking at fertility and longevity, stayability. We offer a stayability EPD, which indicates the probability of a cow remaining in the herd to 6 years or more. And then we also have an EPD for heifer pregnancy, and then PG30, which PG30 would be an EPD that indicates the probability that females are going to rebreed for their second calf. And so that's extremely important that these females calve on time as 2-year-olds, that they rebreed, they come back in the herd, raising their second calf. And then as far as the longevity of staying in the herd more than 6 years.
Yeah, excellent. Ryan?
Yeah, I think I'd echo a lot of Tom's comments there. As we think about the different EPDs or different genetic predictions that we offer, stayability is going to be the biggest one. And that's really, as we think about cow longevity or cow depreciation, I mean, that's a major cost in any operation. And so trying to get that to as high a level genetically as we can is, a big part. As we look at selection indexes, again, those are always the heaviest weighted in those. And so there's a big economic incentive to increase that longevity. We also offer a heifer pregnancy EPD, which looks at that first breeding season there and trying to get as many of those females bred as we can, as well as maternal calving ease. So obviously, no one likes pulling calves.
That's right.
And so that offers you an opportunity of looking at those daughters of those individuals that should have an easier time calving And then mature cow size. So we offer that in a maintenance energy EPD, which really looks at differences in mature cow size, which I think is definitely important. And some of the earlier points about outputs that Shane made, I think as we think about that, that's where we see some of the cost side of increasing outputs through weaning weights and stuff like that. And so we really want to try to identify maybe some of those animals that can grow quickly to a year of age, but would love for them to kind of taper off and not get as big as mature females.
Not eat us out of house and home for the next 8 or 10 years.
Yes, exactly.
Dr. Retallick, what would you add?
Yeah, I think I would echo Ryan's comments on the fact that our selection indexes are really designed to drive that maternal profitability. So we just released in 2019 the maternal weaned calf value index for Angus breeders and users of Angus genetics. So we call it dollar maternal or dollar M. So that has 9 different maternal traits in it, from calving ease, weaning weight, because obviously weaning weight is still a huge profitability driver for our individuals that are weaning calves and selling them as feeders. Heifer pregnancy, mature cow size, docility, and our foot structure EPDs. And
foot structure, you said?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So trying to make sure that we build those females from the ground up, and then it has all of those management characteristics that we need. You know, nobody wants to pull a calf, nobody wants to keep a wild cow, and nobody wants to deal with an open heifer. And so taking a little bit different approach than maybe a head-on, stayability. Is she in the herd at the first year of age and in the herd at 6 years old and those sorts of things, but really trying to focus on what are those traits, right, that can lead to a cow leaving the herd early. And mature cow size is a big one for sure, and trying to focus in on that. And so I think it's a unique question though, because when you think about bull selection, we always talk about heifer bulls or cow bulls. Right. We talk about heifer bulls and cow bulls. And I'm kind of curious as to if the industry will ever start thinking about maternal bulls and terminal bulls. Right? That's really what the Continentals were there for in the beginning, right? They were there as great terminal characteristics when we think of the Simmentals and some of those other groups. And so I'm curious if there ever will be a paradigm shift, and maybe I'm curious about the folks on this panel, if there will ever be a paradigm shift where I'm no longer looking for a heifer bull and a cow bull, but I'm looking for a maternal bull and a terminal bull.
Certainly the hog industry does that, and so that's a great question and probably a topic of an altogether different show that would be a lot of fun. Shane.
You know, I think lots of good points have been made by the panelists here. The only thing I would add, the efficiency component still got to be top of mind in here, and I think a lot of us have different EPDs or selection points that we can help select with that and put that in to our thought process. And a lot of our selection indexes, all of our indexes at Hereford do have that component in. With the stayability and the cow fertility and the calving ease and cow weight. And so, having that component as we go into tougher times, drought-stricken areas, I mean, that's a big component as we bend the curve and try to find that female that can do it all. That's one place we can make a big impact here in our I'll adjust the question a little bit for you, Jim, in the sense that, let's talk about how that cow has to fit the environment. Clearly, you come from a breed, and trying to dial in just how much ear I need in my cows in order to be able to perform in the region that I'm in. Give me your perspective of that.
Well, I would say this too, just as a tail end on the question that was asked. All breed associations, including Brahman, have these performance programs.
Sure.
And your EPDs and all these different traits that you measure. But you have to have in that maternal cow, the bottom line, and we're blessed with Brahman cattle or Brahman influence, and I'm not here promoting just Brahman, but we have longevity. We have stayability in Brahman cattle because those cattle, both the crossbred cattle, F1 Brayfords, Brangus, what have you, those cows can live 18 to 20 years old. I mean, there's been experiments all done along the southeast where that happens. But you can have all these programs, but you basically got to have a cow that has longevity and that stayability and does a good job year after year after year that's low maintenance. That's just, what you have to have. And it's good you have these programs where you can measure those traits.
You bet.
But you still, bottom line, you have to have a functional female that maintains herself and raises a good calf and has structural soundness, integrity, can go out under different conditions and different environments that can maintain themselves. Now, I forgot the question you asked me specifically.
Yes.
So what'd you ask me?
No, and I think you've answered the whole issue around
Yeah.
the environment. She's got to
Yeah.
be able to adapt to Colorado just as well as
That's
she
right.
adapts to the Gulf
That's
Coast,
right.
and those are probably two different cows.
We have a place in South Texas in the brush country that's down by the Mexican border.
Okay.
And down there, you even have to have a cow there that's a little bit different that you have here along this Gulf Coast
Interesting.
area.
Yep.
Or that you might have, in the northern areas.
Sure.
There's kind of a line, and we're pushing that with cattle that have Brahman influence in them, because the one thing if you have that F1 female,
Yep.
you can breed her to some of these continental bulls that are terminal and can produce a calf that's highly in demand. Fortunately, all the people on the panel, we personally at the ranch use those bloodlines because they are strong maternal. And at the ranch and with the Brahman breed, we're known as maternal breed. And, our slogans are Queen of the Cow Country.
That's right. That's
and that's
fantastic.
kind of what we are.
This is a great discussion, and we have a lot more ground to cover before we're through today, including a look at some of the factors you need to consider when selecting the genetics for your herd. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Grass is the center of our universe. We've got to have a grass program that we can count on and plan on. That's what we need to sustain us, to keep us growing, to keep us prospering.
When you spot BRD in your cattle, that's your golden opportunity to target infection and its associated fever with a single dose of Resflor Gold, the industry standard dual therapy. To learn more, talk to your Merck Animal Health rep or your vet and see label at resflorgold.com. Animals intended for human consumption must not be slaughtered within 38 days of treatment. This product is not approved for use in female dairy cattle 20 months of age or older, including dry dairy cows.
From the very beginning, Ritchie has been dedicated to one thing: helping people deliver fresh, constant water to their animals. Today's Ritchie waterers rely on a valve design that remains much the same as it was in 1921. It's a simple idea: do it right, and the rest will take care of itself. We never set out to create a company that would be around for 100 years. We just wanted to create something great.
Welcome back to this special edition of Cattlemen to Cattlemen, as we gather valuable insights from a group of experts in cattle breeding and genetics. Let's talk replacement heifer selection for just a minute. And as we think about visually appraising heifers, what do we look for, first of all? And then secondly, how do we square that with what we're reading on paper? Shane?
Yeah, it's a balance of both. I think every cattleman enjoys going out in the pasture and seeing good cattle. Okay, finding that favorite cow, and it most, to me, starts with structure, feet and legs. When you're making those keep cold decisions in that alley, and you're spending time going out in the pasture and looking at those cattle in the pen as you're developing them, you need to find those cattle that are structurally correct, that are built right from the ground up, have some natural capacity, cattle that are pretty easy to work with, and have a good disposition when you're around them. Those are some first basic things, to start with, and then you can look at the data and the paper, or, the bull that you're looking at. But finding the balance is sure where we need to be.
Jim, you judge a lot of shows. What would you add in terms of a visual appraisal standpoint?
Well, I think a lot of times on visual appraisal, you need to go with that first impression. That when you see that animal, first of all, she's got to look feminine and refined. And we're at the ranch, we have both commercial cattle and Brahman cattle. So what we'll do, purebred cattle, what we might do briefly, I might have all the performance records the night before, all the data, the weaning weight, all the EPDs. I'll go through that and circle the outliers that you don't want at all, the outliers. and then circle the ones that I really want to look at this heifer good because she's got outstanding numbers.
Sure.
And so you're looking at that and making your decision. Now, in the commercial, when we're keeping those commercial heifers,
Yep.
we might have 350 Brangus cows, not to say Brangus, Brayford too, whoever, but we're picking those cows quick. I'm cutting them as fast as they can bring them on commercial. And I'm looking at all those things that Shane just told you. First thing she comes in there, she's got to be a cow heifer's got femininity. She's got to have flexibility and can travel, longevity. I'm not really worried too much about the numbers on her because I don't have the numbers on her. But hopefully I've selected bulls that I have confidence in can produce the numbers that I want. But she's got to have those visual traits, and she's got to have that good look to her.
That's a great point. And
yeah,
when you talk about visual appraisal, we can complement that with some data, some genomics and so forth. Kelly, tell us about some of the other tools and genetic technologies we might want to use in addition to that visual appraisal to select those females.
Sure, absolutely. And I think when we talk about visual appraisal, it's not a commercial versus a seed stock environment. I think we got to go out, those cows have to be built right, in order to continue to make it in the herd and make sure that we have the right females that are going to fit our breeding objectives. And then if we want to look under the hood, get a little bit layered deeper, once we make those cuts for foot structure, docility, size, if somebody just didn't wean off a high performing calf or things like that,
sure.
Once we make those cuts, then hey, maybe we can take on a DNA test. Something that we run in our house is GeneMax Advantage, right? And that's one of those tests that can give you 5 maternal, 17 different individual traits and 3 different economic indexes to try to appraise some things once you've already made your baseline selection of, okay, these are the ones that I've culled off my bottom half, focused on this 50%, let's go in and test them, and maybe I'm gonna come up with my top 40% that's gonna be left in my herd. And I really encourage commercial producers, if they wanna do those types of things, to really take that approach, because we know there's gonna be some of those weaned heifer calves that are gonna come off and they're just frankly not gonna work, regardless of what that individual genetic merit says.
So Ryan and Tom, I want to adjust the question just a little bit. I show up at a Red Angus or Gelbvieh bull sale. What are the things that I should be looking for that day to select the bull that's going to make me some of the best replacement females? Tom?
Well, I think it's going to vary from producer to producer a little bit, depending on their priorities and their objectives, their environment. But following up on the earlier conversation, I think it definitely takes a balance of looking at the bulls phenotypically and then looking at the paper on the bulls. We have like 23 different EPDs for all different traits. Many of those are maternal influenced EPDs and can give you an indication as far as direct calving ease, maternal calving ease, milk, docility, stability, longevity, and fertility. So there's, and then we have a dollar cow index. So I think the indexes are an excellent place to look when you're bull selection. And then the other thing is, I think that these producers should be buying bulls that have genomically enhanced EPDs, because the seed stock producers have done the work, they've paid for the DNA testing, and it improves the accuracy and it lowers the risk for the buyers. One of the other things I want to talk about just briefly on visual appraisal, it's an ongoing process. So it's not just a keep and cull one time when you're selecting your replacement females, but as those cows mature and continue in the herd, it's important to continue to evaluate soundness and especially udder conformation and things like that. We got to keep the udder suspension tight, teats small, so these calves can get to going at birth.
Excellent. Right?
Yeah, and kind of to follow up on some of Tom's comments there, genomics and genomically enhanced EPDs, one of the big advantages there is that allows us to incorporate much more information into that EPD calculation process on those young animals. We get a look into, what they inherited as far as DNA markers. And for many of these maternal traits, it's the equivalent of having, more than 20 progeny records on those animals. And so really you can get a lot more information on those younger animals, and that lowers your risk. It gives you a much better estimate of what that genetic merit of that individual animal is. And so the more tools you have in your toolbox and the better each tool is, the better your decisions are going to be. And so I think those are all things, that we've been talking about that can be incorporated.
So demand that bull producer is providing you genomically enhanced information to make the most accurate decision you can make.
Yep, I'd say that, and continuing to collect and report good phenotypic data, because really all EPDs, I mean, that's the engine that drives the process. Is the phenotypic data, and it helps us on the genomic side too. And so, I mean, finding those seed stock producers that really focus on performance recording, I think is very important as well.
That's outstanding, and a great segue into our next segment. Coming up, we'll dive deeper into EPDs. Stay with us.
At Merck Animal Health, we wake up each day seeking new innovations to keep your herd healthy. This is why we're proud to now include Allflex Livestock Intelligence in our portfolio of solutions. With Allflex, we can provide the tools to identify, monitor, and trace each animal within a herd. Its state-of-the-art offerings deliver real-time insights to help you optimize productivity. Merck Animal Health and Allflex Livestock Intelligence. For our animals, our industry, and our future.
Get jazzed as the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show returns to New Orleans February 1st through 3rd, 2023. Experience the oldest and largest convention for the beef cattle business. Register today by visiting convention.ncba.org.
Welcome back. We're here with our great panel of breed association professionals, and I want to begin our discussions talking about EPDs. So, Dr. Retallick, why don't you begin and tell us, how are EPDs developed in the first place?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So it's really made up of 4 main parts. We start with our pedigrees. That's going to be all of our lineage, our sires, our dams, our grandparents, how we're connected to those progenies, and then how those pedigrees overlap between different environments. That's why we can compare EPDs across different environments. Then we're going to go into our performance data, right? What's that individual measurement that I collect on that animal? A weaning weight, a scrotal measure, a heifer breeding record. We have those individual performance data records. And then one of the most important things, right, is probably the most important thing, I think Ryan would agree, right, are the progeny data points, right? Phenotype is king, even in this world of genotypes. And then finally, we have our genotype data. And we layer all those things together to basically come up with how much spread do we have in that individual trait, right? Where did they rank among each other? And then we come up with an EPD, right, that's heritable. So when you think about our EPDs, they have range in heritability. So some are more heritable than others, which means some are more influenced by the environment than others. And that really tells the tale of how fast we can make genetic progress.
And Ryan, so much of it is based on the comparative differences between animals within a given contemporary group. We can have 2 85-pound calves, but if one is the largest and all the other calves were 70, and that one is the smallest with a bunch of calves are 95, those are different 85-pound calves. Tell us why it's so important to capture whole herd data.
Yeah, and within a genetic evaluation, that's how we're making all of our comparisons are within each herd. And so having complete records for as many of those traits as we can gives us a better idea of, was that the best calf, or was that that calf closer to average? And that's very, very important for the genetic evaluation process. And there's, many different associations have different programs that encourages that complete reporting, not just reporting the best ones. And so by doing that, we allow ourselves to make EPDs more accurate because we have more information, more comparisons going into those calculations.
It can be pretty confusing going to a bull sale these days, Shane, and seeing all kinds of numbers, individual EPDs, indexes. How do we utilize then EPDs to make good decisions?
Yeah, we had some earlier discussion about establishing the breeding objective of every operation and what those goals are of the operation. And so I think that process can become pretty refined and pretty specific for your operation. And so you've got to determine, hey, if I need to make strides in my maternal capabilities, I need to add more milk into my herd, then you need to go right to that milk EPD, establish a breed average for the breed, Every association publishes that on the website if it's not available in the bull sale catalog, and figure out what bulls in that program can take you forward. And so if it's one trait, if it's 3 or 4 traits, and again, those indexes that we've talked about usually kind of take in that comprehensive look of using an animal, and they all have a breed average or a baseline, and a lot of times a percentile band to go along with that, and how aggressive you need to make that change will dictate how aggressive that trait needs to be in the top percent of the breed, or just kind of keeping right average if you're in a good spot.
And what if I'm using multiple breeds? How do I go about comparing one breed against another as I'm looking at the EPDs?
Well, the U.S. The Meat Animal Research Center at Mark has done a great job of establishing that baseline and being able to compare breeds to one another. They've done the third-party unbiased work. They've got all of our breeds' influences there at their research center. They're in Clay Center, and so they can be able to make that comparison, let's say, between 2 breeds on birth weight, because our scales are different.
Yep.
And so as you step into a bullpen, and where you have a lot of these sales anymore that are selling multiple bulls at them, and a lot of guys that are running multiple bulls in their pastures. And so that breed average that I referenced before really shouldn't be compared and the same scale used. You've got to kind of move to breed to establish that trajectory and that those differences within breed. But the Meat Animal Research Center, that is a good resource where you can take two numbers and compare them across breed.
That's great perspective. Thanks again for that additional insight. Now don't go away. We'll have more insights from our panel right after this. Stay with us.
Cattle producers across the country work hard to care for their animals and their land. The USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service is there to help. Find out how you can work with NRCS to develop a conservation plan for your operation. Find possible funding resources for implementing conservation practices, or get free expert advice on ways to improve your farm or ranch. Visit the website nrcs.usda.gov today. For commercial cow-calf producers, crossbreeding with Gelbvieh and Balancer is the smart, reliable, and profitable choice. Gelbvieh and Balancer females offer maternal superiority through increased fertility, greater longevity, and more pounds of calf weaned per cow exposed. In the feed yard, Balancer cattle deliver increased performance, improved feed efficiency, and excellent carcass merit. Balancer adds the pounds, make the grade, and deliver the value. Gelbvieh and Balancer, the smart, reliable, and profitable choice. Find out more at the website gelbvieh.org.
Welcome back. We're talking with our panel of genetic experts about selection and breeding decisions that can improve your cow herd. And as we talk about improving cow herds, specifically as it relates to maternal efficiency, I go back to some animal science courses that once told me that the best way to improve some of these lowly heritable reproductive traits is through crossbreeding. Jimmy, what's your read on that?
That still holds true today, Kevin, that you learned back when you were in school and myself in school. To get the most hybrid vigor and to improve traits quickly, you can use crossbreeding, particularly Bos indicus crossed with Bos stars, because it gives you the most genetic punch. But crossbreeding is very, very valuable too for the commercial breeder. I think it's very important you still have to have a purebred breed in the crossbreeding program, because if you breed a crossbred, this is genetics 101 50 years ago too. You know, the F2 isn't as good as the F1. So you still got to have that integrity of that purebred animal that you have. But throughout the southern part of the United States, crossbreeding is just taken over. And what you can do with crossbreeding, you can have that F1 cow and then go back and use another purebred breed and still get that genetic punch in those calves And I think you need to have bulls and females that complement each other. Like you can have that real strong maternal cow herd that we've all talked about. I mean, I always say the magic is in the cows. That's how I think. I think females more than I think bulls. But then you can put those bulls on those cattle that give you that great punch. And there's been research after research all across the United States that documents that F1 cow, regardless, even if she's a black baldy F1, that cow has lots of hybrid vigor in her. That's been documented. And then Shane made a good point about Meat Animal Research Center at Clay Center, and he said one word in there that's really valuable to me: unbiased. Because as breed associations, we all have a little bit of bias to it, trying to make ours look the best. But when you send them up there to Meat Animal Research Center and Dr. Cundiff and them, they're going to call it as they see it.
That's
but
great.
Crossbreeding is a very valuable tool.
Kelly, what would you say relative to Jim's point around maintaining the pure breeds as pure breeds?
Yeah, so the one thing that the American Angus Association has always had is that closed herd book, right? Yep. Trying to maintain the integrity of the purebred Black Angus, female and Black Angus bull. And so when we think about crossbreeding, just like Mr. Jim said, right, one of the main things that we need to have is we need to have a strong purebred population, right, to continue to make those matings, to continue to capitalize on that genetic diversity when we start to make those crossbred females. And so I think, everyone plays a role in trying to compete in this commercial cattle space, and we hope that the Angus bull continues to be a breed of choice, right, among commercial cattlemen to do it.
Shane, that black baldy cow is a pretty popular cow out in America. What do you see as the value of crossbreeding?
Yeah, I think you can complement all the breeds that we have in the U.S., and everybody has their favorite breed, their breed of choice, and what they want to do with that. But I think there's a variety of different options in how you can crossbreed and make your cow herd better, make it more adaptable to your environment. And we've shown a lot of good research and data throughout the U.S., whether it be in Missouri or out in California, down in the Gulf Coast, and where Hereford can fit in a true F1 cross or in a rotational cross. And the biggest bang that we've talked about is in the fertility traits, and the pregnancy and the boost that you can get is 7 to 10% in those pregnancy rates, and that's just being on the low side, and what the literature and the data has shown.
And cow longevity as well, right?
Absolutely.
Is enhanced through crossbreeding. So if we decide to create a crossbreeding program, Tom, what factors should we consider in developing that crossbreeding system?
Well, breed complementarity is huge. And so I think that's extremely important. And then, like the other panelists have talked, it's basically about your breed of choice. But, Gelvies have great breed complementarity. Our balancer population has Gelvie with Red Angus cattle, Gelvie with Black Angus cattle. We have producers raising Gelvie cross with Herefords, and we have Southern balancers, which are Gelvie cattle. The hybrids have a heat-tolerant breed in them, so whether it's Brangus, Brahman, Santa Gertrudis, or whatever. So, adaptability, the versatility, and then, of course, the longevity and the stayability. And crossbreeding is king when it comes to increasing maternal efficiency.
Ryan, what would you say to somebody say, I've thought about crossbreeding, I just think it's too complex, it's too complicated, I can't manage it?
Yeah, that's a really good point, Kevin, and I think that's maybe where some of our crossbreeding programs tend to start breaking down. And so there's different ways that you can implement, and try to get some of that hybrid vigor and heterosis. And so you can do things like rotations in time that you could implement, or that way you don't have to have a bunch of different breeding pastures and trying to track breed percentages, and that's where the challenge comes. But at the end of the day, the crossbreeding is one of the best things that we can do in commercial cattle production. I mean, everyone recognizes that, and it's something that we need to continue doing going forward.
No doubt it works in corn, and it's proven to work in hogs, and I think it works in cattle as well. Great conversation. When we come back, we'll have more insights from our panel. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
We didn't just design the 6M tractors with you in mind, we designed them with you by our side. The new 6M tractors from John Deere, reimagined by you, for you. For a limited time, get 0% APR financing on qualifying 6 Series tractors and round balers. Experience the new 6M at your local John Deere dealer.
Welcome back. As we wrap up our program, I'd like each of our panelists to share some final thoughts with us. You know, we've been in a liquidation phase of this cow herd, largely because of drought over the last couple of years, and some would hope and think that we're going to be rebuilding the cow herd sometime over the next couple of years. As we do that, what are some thoughts you all have and suggestions that we need to consider as we rebuild and create an even better cow herd, Tom?
Well, I think it's important for producers to develop a business plan, have goals, priorities, know what their resources are, and then when they go into genetic selection, we've talked about many things, including visual appraisal, EPDs, genomics. So there's a multitude of tools that producers can use to make genetic selection. They need to be disciplined and stay focused and true to their program as they make these different decisions going forward. And, we've talked about the increasing maternal productivity and maternal efficiency, and I think crossbreeding is the best way to accomplish that. And so, many of these breeds have different strengths and weaknesses, and so breed complementarity is important if you're considering a crossbreeding program, and then how you're going to manage the continuity of that. So thanks for the opportunity to be here today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks
Kevin.
for your insight. But it begins with that objective. Brian.
Yeah, I think, there's many of our associations make really great tools for trying to improve maternal efficiency through genetics. But we also at Red Angus have a program called Red Choice, which gives producers steps in heifer development and things of that nature. And so really to me, it's about, earlier I talked about tools in the toolbox.
Yes.
And the more tools that we can put in that toolbox and the better those tools are, I think it's a combination of things genetically, phenotypically, and the better that we are with all of those different things, the better and more profitable that we're going to be in the future.
Excellent. Dr. Ratelli.
Yeah, so I think we all talked a lot about today about all the tools in the toolbox, right, that we're trying to make progress on. And I hope you hear that the work isn't done, right? There's more improvement to be made every day. When we come into our offices, while we might not be out feeding cows every day like Mr. Jim, we come into the office every day thinking about the cow man, whether that's commercial cattleman, the seed stock producer, and trying to improve upon this genetic base that we continue to have. And we're in a unique opportunity right now in this liquidation phase where as we start to build back that cow herd, we can really be strategic, right, about the decisions we're going to make. We're going to be able to make sure that we place the right emphasis on that bull investment, so that way as we're keeping more replacement females, right, out of our cow herd, they're the best that they can really be. So all in all, thank you for letting us be on here today. Angus is sure appreciative of all that you guys do to help the commercial cattlemen, and just really appreciate being here.
And thank you. Shane?
I think the beef industry is in a great position. You think back to some of the other liquidations and where some of those genetics, have sifted out of the cow herd. We've been able to make a lot of progress during these times of liquidations. And we're going to get into some exciting times, I think, relative to calf prices and generations that we can turn over pretty quickly here to really be able to move this industry forward. And so I think producers got to take some time and sit back and say, okay, I've got a great opportunity in front of me. What breed or breeds do I want to go forward with as far as this cow base is concerned to set me up for the most profitable and efficient way of doing business going forward? And I think, we've laid out a whole host of different ways that you could do that today. Having an F1 female of some kind, and then doing a rotational cross back on her is a great way to do that, and utilize the genetic technology to move forward with if you want to raise your own replacements. There's several of these guys out there doing a really good job of making their own.
You bet.
And so that can simplify your process as well, and take one element where you can focus on one side of the business,
Sure.
and that's raising pounds of calf.
Sure.
Through more of a straight terminal cross, if you've selected that good F1 female
Sure.
that many of these people are out there raising through bred heifer cells and what you have there. So that's an option.
That too goes back to figuring out what you're good at, what resources you have, and maybe there are other people in parts of the business that are better at raising developed replacement heifers than you are. That's a great comment. Thank you, Jim.
Well, Kevin, thank you for having me. We've had a great panel here. Enjoyed being with all of y'all. I've used all of y'all's breeds successfully, and I appreciate it. To sum up what I would say about what a person needs to do, a purebred guy, commercial guy, whoever, and we haven't talked about it too much, but breed quality. Quality never goes out of style. And no matter what the price market does, and it fluctuates, quality cattle will always sell. And there's always going to be a demand for quality, not quantity. Some people want to have a whole bunch of cows. I never wanted to have a whole bunch of cows, but I wanted to have a good herd of quality cows. Pick the breed that you like. All breeds have good things about them.
Sure.
Get breeds that complement each other, but go with quality. Quality will never go out of style. Always be in demand.
That is a great way to wrap us up. And that wraps up this edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks again to our panel for their insights, and thank you for watching. We'll see you next time right here on RFD TV.